My dad kicked me out on my 18th birthday. 10 years later, I bought his company, cut his retirement plan, and hired him as my driver. He didn't even look me in the eyes when he did it. Just stood at the front porch like he was taking out the garbage, a wrinkled trash bag in one hand, my life stuffed inside it. Jeans, a couple shirts, my sneakers tied together and thrown on top like I was being donated. The porch light flickered above us, casting shadows that made the lines in his face look deeper. There wasn't a birthday cake, not even a sarcastic card, just those 6 words that stuck in my head for a decade. You're an adult now, figure it out. I stood there for a few seconds, not sure if he was joking. I mean, who kicks out their own kid on their birthday without warning? But the way he crossed his arms and stared at the driveway made it clear. No emotion, no guilt, just a man ready to wash his hands clean. I had no money, no job, no plan, and no one waiting for me on the other side of that door. My mom had left years before, and he'd made sure to push everyone else away, too. He believed in one thing, tough love. Said it builds character. Said a man only grows when he hits the ground first. Well, I hit the ground that night. Literally. Slept behind a gas station on the east side of town, using my hoodie as a pillow. My phone was cracked, stuck on 3%, and I didn't have a charger. I remember staring at the screen and making myself a promise. A silent vow that echoed louder than anything he'd ever told me. One day, you'll need me. And when that day comes, I won't be the one begging. I spent the next 6 months bouncing between couches and sleeping in my car. I cleaned floors at a gym during the day and taught myself how to code at night using borrowed library computers. Every hour I worked was fuel. Every door that closed pushed me harder. I watched videos, read forums, build apps that no one used until one of them did. A productivity tool I built out of frustration with how messy my life had become. Nothing fancy, just efficient. 2 years in, I sold it for enough to quit cleaning floors. That money became the seed for a bigger idea. I created a digital workplace suite for remote teams before the world even realized they needed one. It was lean, clean, and solved a real problem. The downloads started slow. Then they doubled. Then tripled. By 25, I had my first million sitting in my business account, and I didn't need anyone to believe in me because I already had. The rest came faster than I expected. Partnerships, funding rounds, speaking gigs. Investors called me a visionary. I just called it survival. I stayed under the radar, avoided press, kept my name out of headlines. Not for privacy. For timing. I was waiting, watching, tracking one company in particular. My father's. He'd built it back in the 90s, an industrial parts supplier with a dozen regional contracts. At its peak, it was worth several million. But things had changed. He didn't keep up with tech. Ignored automation. Treated employees like numbers. The cracks showed. Revenue fell. Clients left. Layoffs started. And he still held on to his pride like it was currency. Too proud to admit the company was rotting from the inside. Then came the opportunity. His board, desperate to keep the company alive, started accepting offers. They didn't disclose names, just dollar signs and terms. I kept my identity off the paperwork. Went through a shell firm. Took meetings as an interested third party. They welcomed the offer like drowning men grabbing a rope, and I gave it to them. The day of the acquisition, I walked into the boardroom with my team behind me. Suits, ties, laptops ready. The room went quiet the moment I stepped in. He was already seated at the head of the table, still thinking he was in control. When he looked up and really saw me, his expression didn't crack immediately. It twisted slowly, like someone trying to make sense of a ghost. I didn't smile. I didn't speak. I just slid the final contract across the table. He opened it. Read the name of the buyer. Paused. Then he looked at me again. I leaned forward and said 4 words he'd never forget. Happy birthday, old man. I didn't wait for a response. I laid out the new terms, his salary, slashed by 70%. The executive perks he once bragged about during backyard barbecues? Gone. The retirement plan he'd built for himself? Terminated under performance-based restructuring. I could have fired him outright, but that would have been too easy. Too clean. Instead, I offered him a job. Not in the boardroom. not in management. Driver. He'd report to my assistant. His schedule would be set weekly. He would wear a uniform, clean the car, keep quiet during rides unless spoken to. The offer was final. He could take it or walk. And he knew, just like I did, that no other company was going to hire a washed-up executive with a trail of losses behind him. That was 3 months ago. Now, every morning at 8 o'clock sharp, he pulls up to my townhouse in the company car, steps out, opens the rear door, keeps his eyes down, doesn't speak unless I ask him something, drives me to the office I own, through the gates he used to walk through like a king. Sometimes I catch him glancing in the mirror like he's trying to understand how it all flipped. He taught me to be ruthless, but I taught him what that really meant. He never complains, not about the early mornings or the silence in the car. He arrives on time, opens the door, nods, and gets behind the wheel like this is all he's ever known. His hands grip the steering wheel with the same stiffness I remember from when he used to tighten bolts in the garage, back when the only thing he respected was control. That's what this job stripped from him, the illusion that he still had it. The first week he drove me, he didn't say a single word unless I asked him something directly. Short responses. Yes. No. Understood. The usual. I never needed more. I didn't hire him for conversation. I hired him because he needed the money, and I needed him to understand what losing everything felt like. Every corner he turns, every mile we drive, I watch him through the reflection of the rearview mirror. He avoids my eyes. Every time. Back in the office, my team respects me. Not because I demand it, but because I built something from nothing. They know my story in pieces, but I've never told them the full version. To them, he's just the quiet old guy in the company car. They don't know he used to run the place. They don't know this building used to have his name on a plaque in the front lobby. I had that removed the day I signed the final acquisition paperwork. Didn't even tell the board. Just had it taken down. It's in storage now, buried under boxes of things no one wanted. I scheduled a company-wide meeting that first month, brought in everyone from all branches, made it clear that change wasn't coming, it had already happened. I introduced the new management team, promoted from within. No outsiders. People who had stayed loyal through the layoffs, the budget cuts, the months without raises. I gave them back their future. Meanwhile, he stood in the back of the auditorium in his black company-issued jacket, hands behind his back, watching me take the spotlight he used to guard like a throne. At night, he parks the car and waits by the door. He doesn't ask to go home early. He doesn't ask for favors. He knows better. I give him the bare minimum, enough to pay his rent, keep the lights on, and maybe fill his fridge. He doesn't get bonuses. No stock options. No executive retreats. Just cold responsibility and the knowledge that every mile he drives, every stoplight he waits through, adds to a lesson he forced me to learn the hard way. I never asked him why he did it, why he threw me out like that, no warning, no discussion. Maybe he thought it'd make me stronger. Maybe he just didn't want to deal with another mouth to feed. Either way, I never forgot. Not when I slept in the back seat of my car. Not when I ate instant noodles 4 days a week. Not when I stared at job postings I wasn't qualified for. And especially not when I stared down the board that used to worship him and made them sign the company over without knowing whose hands they were placing it in. I don't hate him. It's not about that. This isn't revenge. It's clarity. It's the difference between respect and fear. He used fear. I built respect. The kind that doesn't vanish when paychecks stop. The kind that sticks when you've hit rock bottom and people still choose to follow you. There's a part of him, I think, that knows he lost more than a business. He lost the upper hand. And no matter how many rides he gives me, he won't get it back. Last Thursday, we had a company event downtown. Quarterly review, followed by dinner. I told him to wait outside. It was raining hard, thunder rolling overhead. I could see the rain pooling around his shoes while he stood beside the driver's door. He didn't ask to come inside, just kept his posture, stared ahead, and waited. I stayed longer than necessary, not because I needed to, but because I knew he'd be there the whole time, getting soaked, thinking about the years he made me sleep in the cold. I gave him the company manual 2 weeks ago. Full driver conduct. schedule tracking, behavior expectations. I made him sign it like every other employee. No exemptions. He read it carefully, nodded, then signed on the last page with the same name he used to stamp on million-dollar contracts. Now it just signed off on GPS logs and gas reimbursements. One morning, he asked if he could change his shift time. Just once. Said he had a doctor's appointment. I told him to speak to HR. He didn't expect that answer. He thought I'd handle it personally. That's the difference. In my company, no one gets special treatment. Not even the man who taught me what being disposable felt like. He returned the next day with a note from the clinic. Quiet, unemotional, professional, just like I expected. The second month, I started including him in monthly status reports. Not to contribute, just to listen. I had him sit at the edge of the meeting room, next to the admin intern. No name tag, no table placard, just a chair in the corner. The same room where he once led decisions that shaped regional supply chains. Now he took notes if I told him to, fetched coffee if someone requested. Not once did he complain. That's what made it better. The quiet compliance. The realization that he had to live in the same structure he once enforced on others. Every Friday, I host a leadership roundtable. C-level execs only. We talk long-term planning, cross-sector deals, upcoming hires. He drives me to that meeting every week, waits outside for 2 hours, and drives me back in silence. Sometimes I watch him from the glass as he leans against the car, checking his watch, staring at the ground. His face doesn't change, but I know he's thinking, running numbers, playing back decisions he made years ago that led him here. I've seen the way other employees look at him now. They whisper, but not out of curiosity, out of disbelief. Most of them still don't know the full story. I didn't announce it. Never needed to. The irony speaks for itself. The once celebrated founder now reduced to a driver's uniform, blending into the background of the empire he once controlled. He tried once to bring up the past. We were stopped at a red light. He cleared his throat and said, "I thought I was doing what was right." Back then. I didn't answer. Just looked out the window. It wasn't worth opening that door. He made his choice, and now he's living in the aftermath of it. Last week, I visited his old office, the one he used before I took over. I had the keys, of course. Everything was still there. Old pictures, dusty books, framed awards. I stood in the middle of the room for a few minutes, just absorbing the silence. I took one of the photos, him shaking hands with his state rep during some ribbon-cutting ceremony. I placed it on my own desk later that day. Not for admiration, for memory. A reminder of where it started. A snapshot of a man who thought legacy was built on power alone. I've got expansion plans now. Real ones. West Coast offices. AI integration. International partnerships. He knows it too. Watches the emails come in. Hears the phone calls through the driver comms. But he's not part of it anymore. Not even close. He's just the man who drops me off at meetings I run and watches from the curb while I make decisions that affect thousands. And every day, as the miles rack up on that company sedan, I don't gloat. I don't laugh. I let the silence speak for itself. Let the space between us carry the weight of everything he chose to ignore back then. I don't need to rub it in. His life does that for me now. Next chapter, he'll have to drive me to our company's 10-year anniversary gala. Black tie. Full press coverage. CEOs, investors, politicians. I've already added his name to the security list as transport staff. He'll be parking cars, watching from the edge while I take the stage. No spotlight, no applause. Just another pair of eyes in the crowd, watching the son he once abandoned, now standing where he used to be. I won't give him the mic. I won't give him a seat at the table. The company gala was held at the Harborfront Convention Center, the same place my father once celebrated his company's 15th anniversary back when it was still his. I remembered that night clearly, though I'd only been a teenager then, sitting alone at a table near the kitchen doors while he made speeches and clinked glasses with men in tailored suits. That evening, he barely acknowledged me. No introductions. No pride. Just a nod in my direction like I was something he had to tolerate for the night. This time, the spotlight was mine. I arrived an hour early. He was already there, parked out front, standing next to the car in a pressed black uniform, cap tilted forward just slightly. The valet crew had already started gathering, checking names, handing off keys. He didn't speak when I walked past him, just opened the door, waited for me to step out, and then closed it behind me without a sound. I nodded once and headed for the entrance. Inside, the lights were up, the stage set, the chairs lined perfectly in rows. The entire executive staff had already arrived, greeting guests, pointing out displays showcasing our growth, our innovations, our future roadmap. No one knew what he used to be. To them, he was just one of the drivers. My speech wasn't long. I never liked dragging things out. I talked about what we'd built, how far we'd come, the people who made it happen. I thanked the engineers, the operations staff, the interns, and the original employees who stuck around during the transition. I talked about the early years, no loans, no mentors, just raw effort and necessity. I left out the part about sleeping behind gas stations and borrowing library computers. Those moments were mine. Private. Fuel for something that couldn't be faked. As I stepped down from the podium, applause followed me back to the table. People clapped for the journey, not just the outcome. It felt earned. He stayed outside the whole time, watched from the curb. The event ran until 10. At 10:02, I saw the car pull up in front. He stepped out, walked around, and opened the back door like he always did. I climbed in without saying a word. He pulled away from the venue, quiet as usual. The roads were empty, the city lights fading behind us as we drove. 15 minutes passed before I spoke. "Tomorrow's your last day." His knuckles tightened slightly on the steering wheel, but he didn't answer right away. He kept driving, eyes on the road, like he hadn't heard me. I waited. "Why?" he finally asked. No anger, just a question. "Because I'm done." The car rolled to a stop at a red light. He didn't look at me, just kept his hands locked in place and stared at the intersection. "I've given you enough time to feel it," I said. Everything I felt. That night, that cold sidewalk, that silence. I didn't do it out of hate. I needed you to understand. The light turned green, and he eased the car forward. "I understand," he said after a moment. "No," I replied, keeping my tone even. "You finally see it, but you don't get to fix it. That's the difference." We pulled up to my townhouse. He stepped out, walked to the back, and opened the door. I got out and stood on the curb, the night air still and quiet. He stood next to the car, waiting like he always did, looking straight ahead. I looked at him, really looked. He was older now, thinner, shoulders less square than they used to be. The man who once stood tall in company photos now barely met my eyes. The change wasn't just physical. It was deeper than that, a resignation that didn't need words to explain itself. "You'll get your final paycheck next Friday," I said. "The severance is standard. Nothing more." He nodded once. "I'm not going to destroy your life," I added. "I just wanted to reclaim mine." He said nothing. I turned and walked up the steps. Didn't look back. The door closed behind me. The next morning, he came in early, like always. Cleaned the car. Checked the schedule. Drove the morning shift without delay. At the end of the day, he returned the keys to the admin desk and left without saying goodbye. No letter, no request, just silence. A week later, his severance was processed. Standard HR procedure. No special notes, no calls. Just another file in the system. He didn't come back. He didn't reach out. Months passed. The company grew. We opened a West Coast branch. Launched a new AI platform. Took on a government contract. Promotions rolled out. Bonuses were issued. I kept moving. Kept building. One afternoon, during a routine meeting with the finance department, I was reviewing our benefits package expansions when a name caught my eye. A new vendor had been added, a local transport contractor. Small, independently managed. One vehicle. Registered to a private residential address. The name on the account? Thomas Weller. My father. He'd started his own transport service. Just one car. Quiet under the radar. No fanfare. No website. Word of mouth only. I didn't interfere. Didn't send lawyers. Didn't call. Let him build it if he wanted to. I didn't owe him success, but I didn't need to take it from him either. Years later, I was giving a guest lecture at a university, talking about entrepreneurship, risk, and legacy. After the talk, a student came up to me, holding a notebook, wide-eyed. "Hey, are you the guy who bought his dad's company and made him a driver?" I paused for a second. "I'm the guy who rebuilt something that someone else threw away." She smiled. "I heard he drives for veterans now. For free." I hadn't heard that part. I didn't ask. I just nodded. That night, I sat at my desk and opened a drawer. Inside was the photo I'd taken from his office, the one where he shook hands with a state official, smiling like he owned the world. I looked at it for a long time. Then I slid it back inside. I didn't need to hang it on a wall. The story was over. Nothing left to prove. He kicked me out on my 18th birthday, told me to figure it out. I did. Then I showed him what that meant, not through revenge, but through resolve. And in the end, I didn't just take back the life he denied me. I outgrew it.